I had pretty mixed feelings about Little Town Hero going all the way back to its initial reveal when it was simply known as Town. Watching trailers was like a roller coaster. I'd go from thinking that it looks really cool to thinking that it looks kinda boring, and quite a few other emotions in between. I went into Little Town Hero blissfully neutral, and even though I could probably make a list of pros and cons as perfectly balanced as the MCU at the end of Infinity War, the feelings I'm left with, having finished it, are overwhelmingly positive. Little Town Hero is mostly just delightful. The visuals are bright and colourful, the art style and character design marries the high stakes, low stakes storytelling perfectly, the world is surprisingly gorgeous, and the unique battle system quickly became really compelling. One of the major reasons I was so lukewarm leading up to the game's release was the explanation that it all takes place in just one town. That sounds like it could very easily become boring, but I was mainly worried about a potential lack of visual variety. It's something I continue to be worried about in relation to Final Fantasy VII Remake, with the only hint of variety shown so far being a little bit of sunshine by the church. I'm not particularly thrilled by the idea that all I'm going to be looking at is dark and gritty Midgar, dark and gritty sewers, and dark and gritty Marco reactors. Little Town Hero sidesteps this issue though. Its base palette being so vibrant makes it easy to offer a variety of aesthetics. Whether it's fighting a spooky scary skeleton in the cemetery, chasing a cat by the mines, or being dragged into a dream world. Each of the major fights has a different look and feel as well. They take place in varying parts of the town, and the monster designs are all uniquely distinct. Nothing about the single town concept ever became a problem really. It's certainly larger than your average JRPG town from another game. It isn't a huge map by any means, but there are multiple districts and it's more like a small world than it is a large town. It is woven into pretty much everything though. The story follows a player named protagonist whose dream is to one day get out of the village and see the world, but the sudden emergence of monsters, mysterious gems, and the day-to-day obligations of a young boy in this very traditional community are constantly getting in the way. I love the way the story unfolds. The main narrative frequently switches between low stakes problems like finding the perfect gift and very high stakes problems like a giant mutant flamingo monster going on a rampage. It really puts you in the protagonist's shoes as he struggles to maintain a balance between the life of a kid, his dreams and aspirations, and the need to protect the town. It's just so very relatable on an emotional level. Trying to find the perfect gift to give a girl for a town tradition on gifting day might seem like a pretty trivial thing to be spending your time on when the fate of the entire town is at risk, but to a kid who doesn't want to disappoint his mum, it's just as important. Optional side quests are likewise split between low stakes and high stakes. They mostly all contribute to the world building in one way or another though. They add little pieces of town history or reveal an event from the past. They are a nice addition to what is a fairly linear JRPG. Now, I did already spend a rather long time explaining the battle system in my Q&A video from a few days ago, so if you want a more in-depth rundown, be sure to check that out. But in essence, the battle system in Little Town Hero blends both a turn-based and card-based system together with elements of puzzle-filled dungeons that are so prevalent in JRPGs. Little Town Hero doesn't have dungeons, it doesn't have endless monsters or grinding or much of the traditional puzzle-solving elements. Rather, it incorporates the feeling of completing dungeons and the satisfaction of puzzle solving into the combat itself. Outside of a handful of tutorial and gimmick battles, every battle is against a unique, terrifying monster that can last in excess of 30 minutes. It is structured in a way that makes each battle act like its own puzzle-filled dungeon, and it was designed to be easy to jump in and out of so you don't need to go out of your way to avoid putting your Switch down if there's something more important going on. It's split into turns, with each turn essentially being a unique puzzle you need to solve. Ideas which act like cards are split into 3 types: attack, defense, and support. Before they can be used, they need to be charged with a resource called power. You start with 3 power, which is reset every turn, and it steadily climbs up to a maximum of 6 the longer the battle goes on. In their pre-charged state, they are called Izzits, and when they are charged, they are called Dazzits. Support cards, traps, and enemy ideas can affect Izzits and Dazzits in different ways, and it's just one of the many intricate little details details and mechanics that turn this simple looking battle system into an interesting, challenging, and very strategic experience. I like to look at it as if there are two goals. The main goal is obviously to beat the monster by dealing damage directly to its health, which is represented by 3 hearts. But in order to do that, you're going to have to consider the goal of each turn, which is to break all of the enemy's ideas. Breaking every enemy idea in a single turn by reducing their defense to 0 will trigger an all break on the monster, allowing you to attack it directly. Planning your moves ahead, thinking about every move you make, and effectively utilizing support in the form of ideas, weapons, and other townspeople is essential to finding a path to an all break. In between turns, you'll move around the town, which is segmented into spaces that may contain the aforementioned weapons and other townspeople. Little Town Hero is full of unique ideas and experimental implementations, but it isn't without its issues. While I love the combat, it's not going to be for everyone, especially with no difficulty adjustments, as it can be quite challenging. On a technical level, there are several issues. The game is gorgeous, yes, but in some cases that comes with compromises to performance. There are several areas where the frame rate dips rather dramatically. It's not going to cause any problems gameplay-wise, but you are definitely going to notice it. I also experienced a brief freezing issue on a few occasions, but unlike the frame rate issues, this one wasn't easy to replicate. It just seemed sort of random. I go to open a menu or an information tab and the game would just freeze for 5 or 10 seconds, like a program not responding on your computer. Then it'd come back to life like nothing had happened. For what it's worth, the game never completely crashed, so even though there are definitely optimization issues, they are far from the worst I've seen on the Switch. Before finishing up, I should talk about Little Town Hero's claim to fame. The primary composer for the OST was Undertale's Toby Fox. At first, the music didn't really strike me, or rather, I just wasn't really noticing it. With the sound options at their default levels, the music is fairly quiet, especially in handheld mode. It wasn't until I maxed the music and played it docked that the brilliance of the music shined through. Each monster has its own battle theme, which further drives that unique feel for every encounter. Not to mention that some of the tracks are just straight up awesome. Oh, I totally forgot to mention that the humor is kick-ass too. There are plenty of laugh-out-loud moments thanks to some brilliant writing. You know what? I actually really rather like this game. Confusing terminology and technical issues aside, Game Freak has created a really compelling experience. It's a little on the short side at around 20 to 25 hours, but it doesn't overstay its welcome, and I was interested by both the story and the combat right to the very end. I'm quite happy to give a thumbs up to Little Town Hero. It's worth a look. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all soon.
Thanks for the liking, subscribing, and the sharing!